Good evening, everyone. The meeting will come to order. Madam Clerk, could you please read the adequate notice of compliance statement?
Yes. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the City Clerk's office in preparation of the public meeting notice dated October 15, 2020, which was properly distributed and posted per statutory requirements.
Thank you. Could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bowman.
Here.
Ms. Hairston.
Here.
Ms. Little.
Here.
Mr. Naidu.
Here.
Mr. O'Sullivan.
Here.
Mr. Vartan.
Present.
President Fox.
Here. So moving on, we've got the Pledge of Allegiance. Chief Evers, do you have a flag there today, or you're? Nope, no flag today. Okay, so I've got my little flag back here.
Yeah, sorry, I did not. I don't have the flag today. I apologize.
That's okay. So if everyone could just join in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. So, Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right. So moving on, Madam Clerk, can you please read the notices regarding closed session and hearings and comments?
Yes. A closed session meeting as authorized by state statute was announced and held prior to the start of this meeting, and the known items for discussion were listed on the published closed session agenda. Please be advised that council meetings are broadcast live on Comcast Channel 36 and Verizon Channel 30 and rebroadcast on Thursdays and Saturdays on HTTV on Comcast 36 and Verizon 33. This meeting is also streaming live through YouTube. To view this meeting via YouTube, please visit the city's website at cityofsummit.org and click on the YouTube icon at the top of the home page. While this meeting is being broadcast live and members of the governing body are participating remotely, steps have been put in place to accommodate public input during this meeting through public notice dated October 15, 2020, which provided information for those wishing to participate during public comment periods at this council meeting. The city clerk's office also provided through public notice instructions on how the public could submit a question or comment via email or regular first-class mail in advance of the meeting. Public comment will be permitted at specific times as outlined in the agenda. Please refrain from commenting until solicited by the council president. For those members of the public who wish to make a comment during a designated public comment period, please use the raise hand feature and you will be called upon by the council president. Unless you are using an electronic device to follow the meeting agenda or need it for professional emergency contact purposes, please turn it off. Lastly, we ask that all participants remain on mute unless called upon to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now on to minutes for approval. Do I hear a motion to approve the regular and closed session minutes of October 6th?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries, and now we're moving on to reports. Madam Mayor, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, everyone. I want to talk to you for a moment about something that's on my mind. I am hearing concerning reports about incidents of uncivil discourse that have been occurring lately in Summit. I lament this loss of civility. Every one of us is grieving the many losses we have suffered this year. Family and friends who are no longer with us or are far away and cannot be seen. Diminished economic prospects and job insecurity. School experiences our children are foregoing. At the same time, we are left to process our grief without our typical sources of comfort, as we worship alone rather than in community, cannot gather at milestone events, miss out on the simple pleasures of dining in restaurants or attending athletic events, movies, and musicals. I recognize the toll the stress of these uncertain times is taking on all of us, but I implore you to be your best selves in our community conversations. We live, learn, and work together. Let us try to be patient with our neighbors, Try not to give in to temptation to communicate quickly, particularly on social media. And if your neighbor does give in to this temptation, try to remember the private difficulties that each of us is grappling with, and try not to reply in kind. As mayor, I have an opportunity to see on a daily basis how much we have one another's backs. I am so proud of all of us and our town, 99% of the time. As for the unfortunate moments, let us all redouble our efforts to keep those as few as possible. And when they occur, as they certainly must, let us all do our best not to judge. We are all doing the best we can in extremely trying times. We are very fortunate to live in this caring community, and let us make sure that it feels safe and hospitable to all of our neighbors. Thank you, and that's all I have, Council President.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And now on to the City Administrator's report. Michael Rogers.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, everyone. The City of Summit Department of Community Services posted Dial-A-Truck dates for 2021 on the city website. The Dial-A-Truck program is an appointment-only service designed to assist the residents of Summit with the disposal of large, heavy, or bulky items at no cost. Please refer to the city website at cityofsummit.org for a list of accepted items for pickup. Work on Pine Grove has begun on the block between Ashland Road and Glen Oaks Avenue. The project will include installation of curbs, sidewalks on the east side, followed by milling and paving. Work will progress towards Blackburn Road over the next few weeks. The road will be closed one block at a time. Residents should anticipate delays in the area. Please join the Department of Community Programs on Friday, October 23rd at 6 p.m. for some hauntingly good entertainment with the movie The Addams Family at Scream on the Green, a scary spinoff of its summer movie series. Before the movie, join a socially distanced Monster Mash dance party or warm up around the bonfire. No seating will be provided due to COVID precautions, and masks must be worn. The annual PAL Halloween Parade and Costume Contest is Saturday, October 24th on the Village Green at 3 p.m. Advanced registration is required and limited spots are available at summitcommunityprograms.com. Children and families will be called in 10-person groups to walk across the stage in front of a panel of judges. The top 3 winning costumes will be announced. The rain date is Sunday, October 25th. And lastly, the annual youth golf tournament will be held at the Summit Municipal Golf Course on Saturday, October 24th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Kids ages 8 to 15 are invited to participate. Then on Sunday, October 25th, disc golf is back at the Summit Muni with $10 rounds for adults and $5 rounds for children. Disc will be available for purchase at the course. And that's all I have for this evening, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you. And now for a few items on the Council President's report. First of all, we have scheduled a presentation for our next council meeting by Carol Bianchi, who is our JCP&L representative. And she will be at the next council meeting on Wednesday, November 4th. Note the meeting is on a Wednesday because of the election. So that she will do a presentation and will also be able to answer questions both from council and from the public. So be sure to join us for the next meeting for that. Halloween, as New Jersey continues to respond to increasing cases of the COVID-19 virus, recommendations for adapting traditional celebrations and considerations for ways to celebrate Halloween safely were issued by the New Jersey State Department of Health. That information, along with Halloween safety tips, is available on the city website at cityofsummit.org. The Summit Police Department, with support from Hometown TV, has created several new videos on the City of Summit YouTube channel with helpful information on safe trick-or-treating during COVID-19, ways to avoid automobile and bicycle theft, how to prevent fraud, and more. The videos have been posted on both the Summit Police and City of Summit Facebook pages. And when you have a moment, please check them out. The guidance is very timely and useful. I'm going to repeat one of the items that I brought up at the last meeting, which is the single-use plastics restrictions will go into effect on January 1st, 2021. And these ordinances restrict single-use plastic bags at checkout. They ban the use of polystyrene, which is styrofoam food containers. And also they make plastic drinking straws available by request only. And the enforcement of the ordinance was previously postponed due to the pandemic, but so the new date will be January 1st, 2021. And finally, flu shots. Union County is going to be providing free flu shots at the Summit Community Center on Thursday, November 5th from 6 to 7 p.m. The goal of the free flu shot drive is to ensure that every Union County resident ages 4 and older can get a flu shot, even if you don't have health insurance. And I'd just like to remind people that particularly this year, the recommendation is that everyone get a flu shot with COVID-19 and the flu both happening at the same time. It's a really important public health measure. So please, if you haven't already gotten your flu shot, take advantage of this free clinic. So with that, we'll move on to a proclamation, a mayoral proclamation. Mayor Adist.
Thank you, Council President. And I want to welcome Lauren Ganella, who is a volunteer at the Medivivors of New Jersey. So Lauren, welcome to our Zoom meeting. If we were on the council chambers, I'd have you come up to the dais. Okay. So whereas October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, let it be known that the City of Summit is pleased to recognize and observe October 13, 2020 as Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness Day, and hereby recognizes Medivivors of New Jersey as a chapter of Medivivor Research and Support, Inc., to inspire action and advocate for better laws and more funding for stage 4 breast cancer patients. And whereas this National Day publicizes heightened awareness for metastatic breast cancer, MBC, as incurable with very different statistics than early stage breast cancer, and an average life expectancy of 18 to 36 months. Approximately 42,690 Americans will die from metastatic breast cancer this year, equal to 115 men and women dying every day. And whereas MBC occurs when breast cancer spreads to other parts of the body, including the bones, lungs, liver, and brain, regardless of early detection, approximately 30% of stage 0 to 3 breast cancers will return as stage 4. On average in the United States, more than 1 in 8 women and 1 in 833 men are diagnosed with invasive breast cancer. And whereas MBC affects all races and socioeconomic classes, Caucasian women experience the greatest incidence of breast cancer. African American women suffer from a mortality rate for breast cancer that is 39% higher. African American men have a worse prognosis than Caucasian men, and breast cancer is the leading cause of cancer-related death for Hispanic women. And whereas currently less than 5% of US breast cancer research is focused on extending the lives of the already metastasized patient, yet 98% of deaths from breast cancer are metastatic. Additional focus is needed to reduce the associated emotional and physical demands of continual treatment and social burdens. And whereas the state of New Jersey participated in the nationwide #LightUpMBC campaign on October 13th by lighting up significant landmarks in the symbolic metastatic breast cancer colors of teal, green, and pink. Teal represents healing and spirituality, green symbolizes the cycle of life over death, and pink signifies that the cancer originated in the breast. New Jersey landmarks were illuminated in Atlantic, Essex, Mercer, Hunterdon, and Union counties. And whereas it is altogether proper and fitting for the City of Summit to pause in its deliberations to recognize October 13, 2020 as Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness Day, and to salute our numerous health and wellness organizations that provide immeasurable contributions in the fight against this illness. Extensive research efforts are underway to save more lives. The clinicaltrials.gov database provides patients, family members, and the public with information about current ongoing clinical research studies. Now, therefore, I, Nora G. Radist, Mayor of the City of Summit, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, October 13th, 2020, as Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness Day in the City of Summit, and encourage all citizens to join the effort of such organizations as MetaViber Research and Support, Inc., towards awareness of metastatic breast cancer and advocacy for more research funding to save lives. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Summit to be affixed this 20th day of October in the year 2020. And Lauren, we will get you a proper proclamation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. I do truly appreciate it.
Thank you for all your good work.
Thank you so much, Lauren. And we actually have a tree lit up here in Summit. Thanks to Lauren and to our Public Works folks. You can see the tree. It's on Beechwood Road in Lyric Park, and you can see it's lit up and will be for the rest of the month. So go, if you're in town in the evening, go by and take a look. So thank you so much.
And I just wanted to say thank you very much, Councilwoman Fox, for helping me in my efforts to do that. And it is already doing what it's supposed to be doing. I've had several conversations about metastatic breast cancer that I wouldn't have otherwise had. So it's doing what it's supposed to be doing of raising awareness already. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you.
That's perfect. Thank you.
So now moving on, we have a number of presentations this evening, and our first one is Jackie Condell, who is the new Executive Director of Reeves Reed Arboretum. And many of us have had the privilege of working with Jackie through the Arboretum, through the Recycling Advisory Committee, and many other environmental initiatives in town. So I'd like to turn it over to you, Jackie. Welcome. I think we need to unmute you.
How about that? There we go.
There we got it.
So thank you for the invitation tonight to come join you. As Councilwoman Fox said, I am Jackie Condell. I am the new Executive Director, effective in July. If you aren't familiar with me, I've actually been at the Arboretum since 2008. So it is a place that is very near and dear to my heart. I have worked in the education department and worked my way up and worked closely with Frank. And I'm very excited to be at the helm, kind of leading the organization forward kind of through these challenging times. I just wanted to take a couple minutes to give you a little update on what's kind of happening over at the Arboretum. As I'm sure many of you know, it has been a difficult year for quite a few of us between COVID and the hurricane. But we really have a lot of small victories that we are kind of proud of, and things that we're kind of trying to focus on, good things that we have going on there, that instead of talking about all our difficulties, I'm sorry, it's been quiet up until this moment, of course. All the things that we have been able to do despite the challenges that we've had. It's really amazing to me that it was only 7 months ago that all of this started happening. We started shutting things down because of COVID. And I take a look around and we are still offering our programs, perhaps 50%, but we're still offering our programs. Our grounds are still open to the public, and we've had visitors straight through since the whole thing began. Staff has been working on site pretty much since April and May. Everybody's been able to be there and work together in a safe kind of way. We've been able to successfully have our first fall festival. And felt like it was a success, social distancing and limiting our numbers. And so really what we're spending a lot of our time working now is building on our successes and finding ways to continue to offer programming, reach the public, reach out into the community, and let people know that we are still here, we're still a resource, and we're still able to connect with people in a safe and comfortable way.
Did anyone have any questions for Jackie? Steve?
Not a question, just a comment. And that is,
Okay.
Jackie, number one, as representative to the Shade Tree, you worked greatly with our group on educating of the public, and that we're looking forward to working with you in the future. I think we have some really neat ideas for tree maintenance and keeping them out of power lines in the future. So, that's such a hot topic, but thank you for everything you've done with the Shade Tree organization.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Councilmember Naidoo.
Thank you, Council President. Jackie, congratulations. It's too bad that the annual gala could not happen this year in order to both celebrate Frank as well as for you. I'm hoping next year that there can be the annual gala and then we can celebrate at that point in time. But I also want to thank the Reeves-Reed Arboretum for being open during even the height of the pandemic. It was one of these areas that people could go to get some respite out of their houses. And that was very important. So thank you for what you guys are doing. And congratulations on your position.
Oh, thank you. And I want to thank the city because you really you were the leaders in when we were trying to decide whether or not we wanted to, and whether we could stay open. I had many conversations with Councilwoman Fox about what else was happening in the parks in Summit. And you guys really led the way by leaving and by staying open in some of the areas that you guys had. It gave us the opportunity to be able to stay open as well. So thank you for trusting us to be able to stay open and do it in a safe way for everybody in the community. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it was a really positive thing. I know I went several times when the daffodils were in bloom just to get out of the house and get a change of scenery. And, there were a lot of people socially distantly enjoying the grounds, and really, I think it was a really positive thing for the community. And so we thank you for that. Any other comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, well, with that, thank you so much, Jackie, for coming, and congratulations. And we look forward to, to a long, happy relationship working with you guys.
I feel the same way. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. So moving on, we have a second presentation from our Regional Health Director, Megan Avalon.
Good evening, everybody. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk a little bit tonight. I wanted to give an update on what we are seeing locally, regionally, and unfortunately nationwide, and that is an increase in COVID cases. We did expect this with the weather turning colder and more people gathering indoors. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what we are seeing more on a local level. Those of you that follow the COVID numbers are probably aware that in the recent weeks, we have seen an increase of the numbers reported in Summit. And as you know, my department, we contact everybody that tests positive, and we do contact tracing, and we learn a lot about where people are getting exposed and how they're getting exposed and how the disease is spread. One of the local trends that we found is a vast majority of the recently reported cases are directly related to inside transmission, whether that is through household contacts or individuals having visitors inside their home. We're not seeing large parties that you may read about in other parts of the states. What we're seeing, I think, is best described as people want to go back to seeing the ones that they love, right? Their friends and their family. And residents have been really, really careful. But now that we're 7 months into this, and they want to do that Sunday dinner again, right? With all the cousins, aunts, and uncles. And we're finding that there may be 12 people around a dinner table. But that is still, a higher risk activity. One of the things that makes COVID in particular hard for us to track and follow and get ahead of is you can effectively spread the virus 2 days before you become symptomatic. So you have your sister and her kids over for dinner. They feel completely fine. And the next day, your niece comes down with a fever and a sore throat. So these are the types of things that we're really finding when we investigate. One of the things on a positive note that we're finding is that when residents locally and regionally travel to other inside venues, the food store, the malls, wherever it is they're going, they're wearing their masks, they're being socially distant, they're doing all the things that we ask them to, right? So all the messaging that we've done is paying off. It seems as though completely understandably that when individuals are inside their own homes or the homes of their loved ones, their guard is down, right? You know, if you're going to a family member's house, you're probably not as careful as keeping a 6-foot distance as you are around strangers. You're probably not wearing a mask because it's a family member's house and you love them and you miss them, right? And you want to hug them. So those are the types of transmissions that we're seeing. We do expect more transmission to occur as the weather becomes colder and all events have to be held indoors. One of the things that I did want to talk about that Council President Fox did mention is Halloween. We're a little nervous for Halloween because it is on a Saturday this year, and we do anticipate some festive celebrations. So as a reminder to residents, if you are going to celebrate Halloween, please just make an effort to wear a mask and to really keep that 6-foot distance. You know, while outdoors is safer than meeting indoors, we're still seeing lots of transmission indoors, especially if individuals are less than 6 feet apart. We do have a campaign that we have been working on all fall. It's about flu shots, and it's Be Seen by Halloween. So we encourage all residents to get their flu shots by Halloween or shortly thereafter. So the Union County City of Summit sponsored free flu shot clinic is a great way to get your flu shot. We will be giving them away for free for every Union County resident. So I encourage residents, if they're able to go to that location or another location and get vaccinated for flu. On a positive note, we have been communicating beautifully with the school system. At this point, I'm talking to the Summit school system multiple times during the day, and anything that comes up, we are able to address immediately and promptly. So that communication chain has been working really, really well. All the work that we have put in over the summer to keep classrooms safe is really paying off, as evidenced by the lack of classroom transmission that we're seeing, not just in Summit, but I think throughout New Jersey. It's fair to say that the work we did is really paying off and classrooms are safe. One thing for parents and residents to be aware of, because they might not know, we're seeing a shift in symptoms, a little different than what we've seen in the spring. In the spring, we were seeing lots of fevers, lots of cough, lots of respiratory symptoms. Now, the most common symptoms that we are getting reported to us from our COVID cases are headache, feeling tired, and diarrhea. So the reason I bring that up is if you have a child who just doesn't look right, is reporting that they're especially tired, that they feel off, please keep them home from school. If you as an adult wake up with a headache, you feel achy, you might not have a fever or cough, but please, stay home and consult with your doctor. If you feel as though you may have been exposed to COVID, we always recommend still a test as well. And then also New Jersey now has a new app that they released. It's called COVID Alert New Jersey. So the idea behind that app is it runs on Bluetooth. And it doesn't track you, but through Bluetooth, it's able to connect with other users who are in close proximity to you, who meet that definition of close contact. And if one of those users becomes COVID positive, through Bluetooth again and some sort of a code that the phones exchange, they will notify you if you've been in touch, in close contact with somebody who ends up being COVID positive. So you can find the app by Googling COVID Alert New Jersey. And then as I started off with, we are seeing an increase in cases. Atlantic Hospital System is reporting an increase in hospitalizations, and they're back to having some COVID floors and an increase in patients who have more severe symptoms. So, I know that we, have been doing all these social distancing measures and wearing a mask for months now, but I think we are truly at the ends of the tunnel, right? We have started locally, statewide, and nationally planning for mass vaccination campaigns that will hopefully start in early 2021. So first, just to thank you for residents, really for, really doing for the vast majority of residents, really everything that we've asked you to do. And I know it's a lot, you really have been doing, and that's so wonderful. But also just a reminder, please don't give up yet. We are really, really close to the end, and we really don't want to be back to the numbers that we saw in the spring. So just continue to wear your mask, stay home if you're sick, and keep that 6-foot distance. Any questions?
Are there any questions from members of council? Councilmember Naidu.
Thank you, Council President. Megan, how is it going with contact tracing? Are you finding that the cooperation from folks when you go and ask them about contact tracing?
We're still struggling, locally with getting a call back, right? So if we call you, please call us back. One of the other big hurdles is a lot of times we'll call, it'll be a cell phone, and the mailbox is full. So we're unable to leave a message. But in that case, we do send a text message. So if you get a text message from us, please give us a call back. It's just because we weren't able to leave a message. So, we're really, really nice people, right? We call 7 days a week. We call, on the weekend. I make calls myself. We're not calling to ask about things like legal status. We don't care about that. We're not calling to ask about activities that you partook in that may involve underage drinking. From the health department, we really don't care about that. All we care about is finding a way to get ahead of this virus, right? What we'll ask you is who you were in contact with, what places you may have been. And of course, we're always interested in symptoms and where you may have been exposed. But the conversation, I promise, is not scary, and it's voluntary. So you can, disengage at any time if you don't like the conversation. But I'm sure you will, right? I'm sure residents will, because we're lovely to talk to. So.
Thank you. Councilmember Hairston, did you have a question?
I do, but I always have to begin with thanking Megan for being vigilant, for being so forward-thinking. I know the commissioner appointed you to the committee to study how we do the vaccine. So I just thank you for being cutting edge and really thoughtful and insightful about how we're managing this. And I'd like you, if you could tell us how the demographics have changed. I know at one point it was only people over, 70 that were getting infected and with the death toll. So if you could just tell us a little bit about that. Thank you.
Sure. So we've definitely seen a switch in the demographics. In the spring, we were seeing older adults, middle-aged adults test positive. Now we're not seeing many older or middle-aged adults. We're seeing a younger population. I firmly believe that's because individuals who are more at risk, those older adults, those middle-aged adults that may have that may be of high risk for complications, they're being extra cautious, right? They're the ones really staying home. They're the ones really wearing their mask all the time. It's the younger adults who may not realize that they're at risk, that maybe the behavior is a little riskier in terms of, not wearing the mask all the time or going to a crowded bar and not keeping a 6-foot distance. The concern that we have with the younger population is that while they may not get as sick as the middle-aged or older adults, they can certainly spread virus in the community. And as I mentioned, we're seeing household transmission occur very frequently throughout the state. So these younger adults can easily spread the virus to, mom, dad, grandma, if you're all living in the same house.
Thank you for sharing that. And I really want to thank you for how you and our communications officer have been so good about removing the stigma and the shame that somehow or other is wrongly being associated with it. So I know the police department have worked with you with that positive deviant behavior. Those who are wearing masks are getting the gift certificates. So keep up that good work, and just thank you.
Thank you. And if I may, to that point, just a reminder, and I know we all know this, getting this virus is nobody's fault, right? It's really evasive and elusive, especially because you can be potentially infectious before you even know you have it. So, if somebody does come down with COVID in the workplace, or at school, and they were at work or at school during the infectious period, it's nobody's fault. These things happen, that's just the nature of the virus and why it's so hard to get ahead of. So it really, it can happen.
Councilmember Vartan.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you very much, Megan, as always, for your incredibly hard work. I want to ask a couple of questions. The first one is do you feel like your office has the resources that you need to continue this great work?
We do. We have been notified by the Department of Health that they will be sending some supplemental funding. As we've talked about many times, public health has been underfunded at all levels for decades, right? I think the struggle a little bit now is just everything is in so many different directions. So, for example, even though, we do have a larger staff, we're dealing with schools, we're dealing with complaints about businesses not being compliant. Residents are still calling in their typical concerns that happen on a non-COVID year. We're trying to investigate cases. So we are working really, really hard, but we have over the summer hired staff members to amplify our contact tracing and disease investigation efforts. So they have all been put in place. So as we continue to see more cases, that will be a huge help. But I'm not going to lie. It is a lot day in and day out, just the sheer volume. Also, the one thing with contact tracing is, when you're talking to individuals, the calls themselves are not necessarily short calls. People want to tell you about their story, their scenario, you're asking questions. Sometimes there's several calls to an individual to get more information. So these types of investigations that we're doing, they're really, time intensive.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And the second is, I know many of my colleagues and I are worried a lot about mental health through the winter, especially. Can you just at a very high level touch on some of the mental health resources that are available and where they can be accessed?
My department, we don't actually, deal directly with mental health. That's not a service we provide, but certainly we refer individuals to Union County social services if there's a specific mental health needs. The one thing I will say is I think that anxiety is certainly up for everybody, myself included, right? And just the nature of staying home, not necessarily being able to see the ones you love the way you want to see them. I think that makes people feel sad at best, you know. So we're constantly encouraging residents that if you feel as though you need somebody to talk to, please don't be ashamed by that, because we're all feeling that.
Thank you. Thank you. And I know the City of Summit COVID page has some other resources linked out to the Union County and state mental health resources too. Thank you again for everything.
So I had a question about reporting. Oftentimes our city information officer posts information about new cases, and residents ask, you know, can we get more detail on the age groups, you know, where the exposures came from, things like that. And sometimes that information is included and sometimes it's not. Can you talk a little bit about the information that is available and you know, when it is and isn't provided, please?
So we always, you know, I think that we do give ages. And exposure, sometimes the reason that's not included is because sometimes it's really hard to tell. When we do a lot of these investigations, individuals will tell us, I don't know anybody who's exposed. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything. I've been working from home. And those cases are really, really hard for us to figure out. Certainly as we get information, we share it. But also, you know, there is a balance in providing information that's beneficial to the community and realizing that some information may be identifying. One thing that I just want to stress, when we interview residents, when we get case information, we never, ever, ever share information that's identifying with anybody, not the mayor, not any members of council, not outside our investigation team. You know, I myself am a nurse, and there are many nurses on my team, and certainly we take patient privacy very, very seriously. So we really would never release anything that could potentially be identifying.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from members of council? Councilmember O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Council President. And thank you, Megan. It's very valuable information. I just had a question about the state. Well, the state transmission rate as of yesterday was 1.15. Do you know what the regional transmission rate is? And do you have the city transmission rate as well?
So we don't have the city transmission rate, but I think that I could get the regional transmission rate. I don't have that readily available now. There's layers and layers of statistics on the State Health Department website, but I could get back to you with that. One thing about our region is we are seeing a marked increase in the number of cases, right? So we're seeing that regionally, we're seeing that in Union County and certainly locally. And as I said, it really, a lot of it is that household transmission. So we're really trying to remind residents that if you do test positive for COVID, when you go back to your home to isolate, you really want to separate yourself from the members of your family so that they don't get sick as well.
And just one other point on just how the cases reported yesterday. Essex County was number 2 in the state. They reported 132, and Union County reported 109. I just have a feeling, and maybe I'm wrong, Summit, we have better numbers than people outside of us. I just feel like the numbers aren't really overwhelming us, whereas others, we're in the 2 counties right close to us, or Union and Essex, they're in the top 5 of cases reported yesterday.
Yeah, you know, we are still seeing an increase in cases for sure, though. You know, I think you also have to look at testing availability as well. You know, Union County test site is still up and running, but I believe it's only running twice a week, where Essex County, I believe, has more access to testing. So when it comes to the actual reporting of numbers, I think it's important to remember that, while that's a good indicator, it might not be the only indicator.
Okay.
Any other questions from members of council? Okay, are there any questions from members of the public? Okay, go ahead, Eileen Kelly.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening. Eileen Kelly, 47 Woodland Avenue. Thank you, Ms. Avalon, as well for your presentation. Along the lines of Councilman O'Sullivan's question, is there a regional information on the infection rate that would, let's say, beyond a threshold, trigger additional action?
Yeah, so the State Health Department has set parameters regionally for low, moderate, and high risk. Our region is currently in moderate risk. They use a certain set of parameters that can be found on their website to dictate this. So currently the region is in moderate risk, as is all New Jersey. And this risk level is updated every Thursday.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from members of the public? Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Avalon, for taking the time to come and talk with us tonight. And thank you for everything you're doing to try and keep us all healthy. We appreciate it.
Hey, have a good night.
Thank you, you too. So now moving on, we have one last presentation from our police chief, Andrew Bartolotti, and this is the annual statistics report. Go ahead, Chief.
Thank you, Council President. Just give me a minute to set up the screen share here.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure everybody can hear me okay? Okay, great. All right, so this is going to be a statistical snapshot of our anticipated annual report, which actually will come out during the first quarter of 2021 once we have all the statistical data available to us throughout all aspects of the department and how that relates to our position within the county and the state as well. But in light of a number of the recent auto thefts, bike thefts, and just generalized thefts that have occurred over the past this quarter, really. This statistical snapshot is something that we wanted to put forward, along with, as the mayor, as Council President had mentioned, a lot of the PSAs that we had done with the assistance of TV 36 as October is Crime Prevention Month. So what I'd like to start with, just to piggyback off Megan's report, is COVID and our response and operational impact that COVID had to us, because that does play into what our statistical operation is going to look like. So when I talk about a 12-week operational period, that's going to cover the 12 weeks between March 16th and June 3rd. And that 12-week operational period is something that we set locally within the police department. And that commencement date of March 16th is when operations within the police department took a turn. And we took a turn from our what we'll call our normal course of police operation business and refocused and restructured under COVID operations. While we were monitoring the COVID pandemic early on prior to the March 16th date, March 16th is really when we felt that an operational change was needed for the police department. So I just want to take you briefly through what that operational plan looked like, what it looked like administratively on the planning end. As you know, during that, roughly right around that time, our administration suffered a big loss with Chief Weck being affected by the virus at that time, which caused some operational shifting, if you will, within the police administration. Nonetheless, we gave ourselves a pretty tight timeline in putting together an operational plan because we felt that as of that March 16th date was a critical date for us to start moving forward, mainly to ensure a couple of things. We need to fully understand what this threat looked like to us from a police standpoint, from a police services standpoint, and from a law enforcement standpoint, and how that was going to affect us, not just locally within Summit, but in the surrounding communities and throughout the state as well. Then what we had to do is set some realistic expectations, and that was look at what our normal, what we call our normal police services are on a regular basis, and how we're going to prioritize those and either scale back or suspend in some cases some of those services so that we could focus really on our operational needs for a COVID situation. And that rolled into evaluating response procedures and instituting additional policies and procedures and amending policies and procedures to meet those needs. And I don't have the exact figure off the top of my head, but I do believe that we were somewhere in the neighborhood of 26 operational procedures that were introduced during this 12-week period. And those operational procedures included how we were going to respond to various types of calls, specifically within the medical services industry and our partnerships with local EMS and local fire. One of the big things that happened during the general consideration portion of our planning was the emotional implications. And that question was brought up today regarding mental health services and mental health concerns. And we knew that as restrictions tightened from the state level, and as we saw the numbers rising throughout not only our local community, the county, the state, but even nationally and globally, what kind of impact that was going to have on the mental stability of everyone involved. But also specifically how that was going to affect our personnel as police services in a crisis like this cannot be diminished, and we had to continue forward. One of the main aspects in that particular area that we focused on was keeping our personnel in a position to minimize their risk as much as possible, but also to minimize the risk to their families, as that was their number one concern on whether or not they were going to be effectively able to carry out their jobs. And then some of the things that we looked at outside the police administration, but transcended into public safety meetings, which again commenced around that March, early mid-March timeframe, was what mental health services were we going to be facing within the community, and how can we best provide that? And that was a collaboration between police department, the city's OEM, inclusive of first aid, fire, the city government, mayor's office, city administrator, and a big part of that process was the regional health department with Megan Avalon. So again, Megan, you've been invaluable to us throughout this process, so thank you. Internal measures, what we looked at there was our staffing impact, as I mentioned, and the ability for us to continue police services. But a big one for us with that is it was very simplistic for us to come up with an alternate work schedule to ensure we had coverage throughout. The big piece was getting the educational awareness around COVID-19 because it was completely brand new and unknown to all of us. So educational awareness, personal protective equipment was an ongoing and rapid learning process for all of us in the emergency services. And I thank Summit EMS and Summit Fire for collaborating with us and providing us the much needed equipment and training that we were after as well. External measures, again, collaboration with partners that involved ongoing meetings with county, state, local officials, locally with Overlook Hospital on regular weekly updates, OEM meetings throughout, and just keeping everybody informed and really bringing forward to the table the areas of concern that we had, because from across all disciplines and emergency services, there were many needs that needed to be addressed. And some of those resources or abilities to accomplish those things came from outside of our own agency. Public awareness was another big one, and that was touched on earlier in Megan's report and by members, comments from members of council with regard to collaborating with the city's public information office to get messaging out and get some PSAs out there. So I want to thank Amy Cairns for her diligent work with that and working with us through the height of that pandemic to get that out. And that was critically important as the governor's office pushed out new executive orders surrounding this. So situational awareness became a big one for us on how we were going to interact with the public on that. Some of the operational impacts, as I mentioned, we had to adjust how we conducted ourselves and delivered what we call regular police services. COVID operations for us over that 12-week period involved a reduction in staffing levels. The reduction in staffing levels came from the reassignment of all non-essential personnel back to the Patrol Operations Division. Essentially, what that did is that took upwards of 40 uniformed officers and supervisors from across all of our disciplines within the department and just front-loaded patrol operations to ensure that we had enough staffing levels to cover all aspects. And I'll talk a little bit on the next slide where that staffing level comes in. Reduction in records and administrative services was affected because of COVID operations. All of our non-essential civilian personnel, for their safety, the safety of their families, and to reduce the amount of employees within City Hall, were all transitioned to a remote work from home and hybrid inside the building work status. Some of the administrative tasks that we do that are non-critical were put on hold until a time that we could resume those. So as we came out of COVID operations in early June, the backlog of administrative services was pretty intense. And I thank our civilian staff for working so diligently to get us caught up to where we are today. Fleet services, that's not something you would normally think about as a major concern for the police department, but what really happened with our fleet services is because of the decontamination requirements that we put in place, the vehicle turnaround time for us was sometimes upwards of 24 hours. And that was across, we learned that had transcended across First Aid Squad as well, as they also experienced long turnaround times in getting their rigs turned around for service due to cleaning requirements. For the first time, we changed and we had a reduction of our in-person contacts and reporting. We did switch to telephonic reporting and contactless reporting. I bring that up because if we do need to revert back to COVID operations, we are not there just yet. We do not foresee having to go there, but that is all going to be dependent on where these numbers transcend over the next couple of months. But I do want the public to be aware that if we are faced with that transition again, contact and telephonic reporting, or contactless and telephonic reporting will come into play. We are beta testing right now an online reporting solution for non-criminal related matters, which we do get quite a bit of. In-person training, which is a regular ongoing thing for the police department, had to be suspended entirely as we could not afford to put police personnel in contact in close proximities in closed spaces. And then ultimately for staffing levels, vacation time and all time off for all uniformed personnel was suspended for at least that 12-week period. We're just starting to catch back up on that, but knowing full well that that can be suspended again at any time. Perhaps one of the biggest areas of disappointment for us as we look back at this point in time is the suspension of all of our community programs and events that we run, especially during the summer months. We painstakingly looked at how we can deliver those services, such as the Youth Academy, National Night Out, Coffee with a Cop, and a number of the other community events and programs, specifically within the schools and in partnership with PAL and a lot of their programs. We ultimately made the decision to have to cancel pretty much all of those events, and the decision-making behind that was not so much that we couldn't hold them outside, as we've noticed with a number of organizations like Reeves Reeve Arboretum and DCP have been able to hold those events. But our events were more hands-on, using National Night Out as an example, and it involved a lot of the younger residents of our town, which is where the health department has been seeing an increase in those numbers. The other concern that we had also was, as frontline first responders, we are going into known and unknown COVID-infected areas and dealing with persons that are positive for the virus and have been in contact with people that are virus, and that continues to go on today. So we are constantly in and out of situations where at any given time, we may or may not know that we've been exposed, and to put ourselves in a position to possibly infect a larger portion of the community for an event that we handle every year. We just didn't see the risk in doing so. So we're hopeful that all of those programs will be back in short order as we work to get back into the schools as well for some of those programs. Some of the operational statistics that I want to point out, I felt were very important. Again, this is over a a 12-week period where these numbers come from. Over 16,000 hours of operational readiness. And what that is on-duty officers covering the streets 24 hours, 7 days a week across that 12-week period, and being mindful that we did that with reduced staff. All officers were transitioned to advanced work schedules outside what their normal work schedules are, which required them to take more time away from their families. And potentially exposing themselves even further before they went home. One thing that is not something that's a normal part of our operation, but this was a mandated reserve readiness, and that was about over 9,000 hours, where on a 24-hour basis, 7 days a week, within a 60-minute response time, if we were hit with an exposure within the department, specifically a patrol operations squad that was working at the time, our protocols at that time, when the virus was high, is the entire working shift would be quarantined, and within an hour, a reserve shift would be in place. So there would be no loss of police services to the city. That has since been scaled back a little bit because we are back to normal operations, but we are ready to institute that at a moment's notice if we need to. Perhaps one of the biggest ones is the over almost 63,000 miles of roadway patrol during that time. So when the rest of the state was in a lockdown, officers were still out there on the road. They were not locked down in the building. As a matter of fact, our building and all areas of the police department was completely locked down, even to our own personnel for minimal use at the time. So officers were out there on the road. That is a true and factual number of 63,000 miles of roadway covered, and Summit has about 80 miles of roadway altogether. Calls for service didn't seem to stop, almost 9,000, 5,000 of those being property checks, and the property checks are officers conducting self-initiated checks of residential and commercial and city building properties during that time. 911 calls, medical calls increased from where we were last year, and obviously that due to the virus. So again, that is officers walking into known and potentially known situations where COVID did exist. And another one that is kind of an excessive number from our normal annual operations is operational briefings. That is 252 during that 12-week period, and that was across all 7 days of the week at all hours of the day, with not just locally within the police department and within OEM and city government, but also regionally within our region, which I'll talk about in a minute, and the county and the state level as well. So we were getting daily briefings from the state on where this virus was transcending, and also, as we'll discuss in a bit, where crime was transcending during that operational period. The one number that I am proud of is that once we instituted that operational time period of 12 weeks, we had 0 positive cases to our frontline officers. So that is all the officers that were on uniform, approximately 40 officers and supervisors going in and out of those 8,900 calls, over 600 medical calls, and not one positive case we experienced within our officers and within their families. So I'm just going to switch gears a little bit. I'm going to kind of go through this a little fast because I know stats and bar graphs could be a little dry, but just to kind of give you an idea of where we are to present day, is we're roughly around just over 35,000 calls for service, where last year we were around 39,000. Now that drop is directly attributed to COVID response, not just across that 12-week period. We did start to come out as a state a little bit in the beginning of June, but we really didn't fully come out. Where I was able to determine that drop in number, looking back across the previous 2 years, is what you're not seeing in that 35,000 number is the self-initiated traffic enforcement details that our officers do, which on average, we should have been about an additional 44 to 4,400, that is, additional calls under normal operations. So that would put us just about even to last year at this point. What did spike is that second bar, the 18,672 number. That is all the public service detail calls that we went on. And a lot of those calls picked up during the COVID operations. And that is calls that we get from members of the public that need assistance with non-criminal matters. And those, as you can see across a 5-year period, have just steadily increased year after year after year. Our motor vehicle accidents, again, we could attribute the decline to a couple of things. I would like to take credit and say that entirely it has nothing to do with COVID, but it does. We do know that there were a lot of vehicles off the road during the COVID period, but that has brought down a reduction. Looking and extracting out that 12-week operational period that we were talking about, where the lockdown orders were in place, our numbers still are down, but overall we are down 33% at this point. Same holds true for pedestrian accidents. We are down considerably, over 64% from where we were last year. And looking back over the last 5 years, that number on averaged out at about 13 or so. So we hope to keep that number extremely low. Again, through the Public Information Office, our internal social media person, and Hometown TV, we've been pushing out a number of PSAs, as it's not only Crime Prevention Month, but it also is Traffic Safety Month as well. And just as an aside, we've been notified recently that we have been awarded both a public safety grant and are on the verge of also receiving a impaired driving and educational enforcement grant that we've started as well. The next thing I'd like to talk about is just where we are in our what we call our Uniform Crime Report. That's the FBI statistical report that comes out on an annual basis. So you'll probably see that first quarter of 2021 for all municipalities across the nation. What this looks like is the eight major calls or types of crimes that the FBI tracks, state police tracks, and we track as well. You'll see that I want to explain a couple of these numbers. Obviously, the top 3 categories are the ones we always want to see zeros across the board. We'd love to see zeros across the board in everything. But our homicides, our rapes, and our robberies are at a 0 for this year. I do want to just touch on rapes. Looking across from 2018-17, those numbers could look a little scary because we do want those to be zeros, but it's important through all of these categories to understand how this category, what it really incorporates. So rape in this type of reporting is not rape that we would normally associate it with, where it's forceful. This does take in pretty much all sexual offenses, which nowadays with digital technology could include a lot of those as well. So what we do just at the end of the year when we're getting ready to finalize these reports, we validate whether or not something is factual or not factual. Looking down at the assaults, again, that's another one that needs some clarification because it could be a little scary to look at and say. But the way assaults get reported in this UCR is it's all encompassing. So it is everything from a physical knockout, drag out fight to something that somebody got into an altercation and it was a verbal altercation and somebody got scratched or somebody threw something and it bruised them, or even a complaint to pain. We'll have those numbers really kind of dissected more for our annual report once we get all those factors in. Burglaries is another one that I want to talk to. I don't have the breakout in the slide, but I do have some of the numbers for you. So if you just bear with me a second. Again, burglaries, it's important to understand how burglaries are categorized. And that is, for simplistic terms, the unlawful entry to commit a crime therein. So looking across the 12 burglaries that we have reported for Summit right now, they're broken down into an equal 6 residential burglaries and 6 non-residential burglaries. And on the residential burglaries, we're looking at 4 of those burglaries where somebody unlawfully entered a structure. Those 4 were done without force. They were done through open garage doors and open doors to the home, whether it be front door, unlocked front door, or unlocked back door. I'm going to touch base on the garage doors when we get to auto theft because they're all tied together as well. We did have one confirmed case of a forcible entry burglary where an individual smashed a window and committed a theft therein of the structure. Excuse me. And we had one case that was an attempted burglary. So even though burglary in the true definition of the sense was not completed, it does go down for statistical and reporting purposes as an attempt. Moving over to the non-residential burglaries, which accounts for the other 6. Again, 3 of these were open doors that were left to the business and somebody walked in. 2 were forced entry to commercial establishments, and 1 was an internal theft. And it's categorized as a burglary because the individual did enter during a time that they were not permitted to do so, but there was no force involved, and items were stolen from there. The bigger ones that I really want to focus on in the next couple of slides are the larcenies, which are our thefts, and our vehicle thefts, because these are the numbers that are alarming. These are the numbers, if you had seen them in the news article, were reported on, and the percentage increase is pretty high. Thefts, larcenies and thefts, that's another one that needs a complete breakdown. That is an extensive one for us to break down, and we'll have that more extensively in the annual report after the first quarter, or during the first quarter of 21. This includes everything. This includes shoplifting. This includes, theft from motor vehicles. This includes items that may have been stolen from a burglary, items that may have been stolen from a robbery. This would also include items that were lost and or stolen, basically unknown to the owner, which we do get a lot of. We do get a lot of misplaced items. The owner coming to report those items to us do not know if they're lost or stolen. Depending on the type of item, if the item does have a significant value to it and we are able to enter that information into the national computer, it does have to go in as a theft for that entry to be into a computer. So that number does come up as well. And if I did mention also shopliftings as well were in there, which I'll tie to a minute to a number of the bike thefts that came in. Bike thefts are involved in that as well. Vehicle thefts, that number is an accurate number. That is 26. This report was done with data from 2 days ago, so I do not know if that number is higher. I believe it might be 27. But what I want to do now is just take you right into auto thefts. And I want to take you into auto theft because auto theft, you're going to see, is really the area that we can do a lot as a community to prevent. It's also an area that when individuals come to commit auto theft, they're committing a number of other crimes that are making our crime statistics rise and increase. And that is specifically within our thefts as well, and the burglaries. So if I could, I'd like to go through just a brief overview here. You'll notice statewide, thefts are down 4% statewide across the state. Across the nation, thefts are at an all-time high. But in New Jersey, at the time of this report, which was this particular report from the state was dated about 30 days ago. This report shows a statewide decrease of 4%. But then you look at the core stat region, and what the core stat region is, that's an identity by the New Jersey State Police Regional Operations and Center, and that incorporates all the counties listed below that. And you'll notice that right off the bat, Union County and Morris County are the highest within the core state region, with Bergen County also high, but Essex County and Hudson County lower than they normally are. The asterisk next to Essex County is there because it's important to note that neighboring town of Milburn, although in Essex County, has seen a drastic increase in car theft this year as well, almost similar to what ours are. So while the whole county is down, you could see that the communities surrounding Summit, both in Essex, Morris, and throughout Union County, are all increasing. And in Summit, the staggering number here is an increase of 188% from 2009. In 2009, we've had 9 vehicles stolen. And as I pointed out earlier, in 2020, there were 26. So before I go into how we could prevent these auto thefts, I want to talk about what we're seeing in these auto theft trends, not just in Summit, but we're seeing them throughout our neighboring jurisdictions as well. And that is when these individuals come into our towns to steal these cars, what they are doing is they are literally walking driveway to driveway. We have video surveillance in Summit that I'm going to show you in a minute. We have video surveillance from throughout Union County and across Morris County and really throughout the state. And if you're so inclined, the information's out there on the internet. You will find very similar type videos from Ring doorbells and home surveillance cameras from throughout this nation right now. And what this is these individuals are going driveway to driveway, house to house, and they're simply just pulling on door handles. And you will see them pull on door handles, and if the door is locked, they move on to the next driveway. And when it is not locked, they jump in that car. And I will tell you that all 26 cars that were stolen in Summit this year, which caused our increase of 188%, were all left unlocked with the key fob or the valet key inside the vehicle. So we are making it extremely easy for these crimes to occur. The residential thefts that I talked about, the 4 with open doors, those 4 were tied to times when we know cars were stolen out of Summit. And if I believe that we had one incident where the car was stolen right out of the garage with the garage door open. Additionally, we had a number of thefts coming out of the motor vehicles, a high number of thefts coming out of motor vehicles for 2020. And again, all were tied to vehicles, every single one tied to a vehicle that was left unlocked. So what am I getting at? I'm getting at that it all starts with the theft of a vehicle. And we could look at those stats on the law enforcement side. We know those stats going back a number of years throughout a number of counties. A lot of your major crimes start with a stolen vehicle, as that is the perceived mode of transportation, or the ideal mode of transportation, if you will, for individuals committing these high-end crimes. So they are coming and they are looking for vehicles, and in there they're looking for open vehicles. They're looking for unlocked vehicles. I don't have a specific slide on bikes, but before I move on to the next, which is a short video clip of one of the PSAs that we put together, I do want to touch on bicycles because we have had a high increase in bike thefts during the month of September. Every one of the bike thefts that have transpired this year have also been unsecured bikes that were left lying. Most of them were left lying against a building in the CBD, and making it very easy for an individual to just pick up and walk away. We did make an arrest, if you're not aware, we did make an arrest a couple of weeks ago of an individual involved in those bike thefts. And during our detectives' interview of that suspect, he simply stated it is very easy to come up to what he classified Summit, Milburn, and the Chatham areas as he was involved, because nothing is ever locked and it's very easy. We were also able to uncover that, just like with car thefts, thieves that come in, this particular individual that was stealing bikes throughout those 3 particular communities was also committing shoplifting thefts as well, as part of his MO to blend in to the area that he was stealing his bikes. And in Summit, a number of those bikes were stolen at the CVS. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to just play for you. It's about a minute long, so I ask for your patience, but I think it's an important PSA. You may have seen it, and if you have, I do apologize, but it is worth watching again. And if you haven't seen it, it's a great opportunity to learn from it. It's got some great information from Officer Sean Thompson, and it's also posted on the city's YouTube page, and I encourage you to share it with all your neighbors, because the best way for Summit to eradicate these types of thefts of opportunity is to all adhere to these lockup procedures of our vehicles, our bikes, our homes, and our property. You will see in a insert clip of a Ring camera that was captured individuals exactly what I was talking about. So let me play that for you.
I'm I'm Officer Sean Thompson, and I would like to speak to you about automobile theft in Summit. Nationally, more vehicles were stolen this year than in any single year since 2009. And the biggest reason might have nothing to do with the criminals being cunning. Every car stolen in Summit this year, more than 25 of them, were all left unlocked with either the key fob or valet key left inside. All thieves need to do is find a car where someone has left the key inside, push the start button, and hit the gas. While Summit police officers routinely patrol 80 miles of Summit roadways and keep watch for the safety of our more than 6,000 residential properties and area businesses, we need your help in deterring auto theft criminals. Please do not leave your cars unlocked or the keys inside when unattended. Security footage provided by homeowners clearly shows actors checking car door handles of vehicles for an unlocked door as they move from house to house. Do not make your block an easy target. Never leave valuables in cars and keep garage door openers out of sight. If valuables must be left in your vehicle when it's unattended, lock them in the trunk. These simple steps are all we need to eliminate vehicle theft in Summit. Please do your part and join us in keeping Summit safe. Thank you.
So I put this up here. It's a very simple tool, and I think it helps to have very simplistic visual training aid. And what this is a crime prevention triangle, and very simple, similar to how the fire triangle, if you're familiar with that, where you need 3 elements for a fire to take place. Very simply put, crime prevention we need 3, for crime to occur, there must be 3 elements present, and that is the ability of the individual committing the crime, the desire of that individual, and the opportunity. And very simply put, if we work together in partnership to eliminate opportunity, we are going to diminish their ability and their desire, and they are going to move to someplace, other community. We're never going to eradicate crime in our nation. Sometimes the best we could do is deter it from happening within our own communities. And we do have that power. We have proven time and time again across disasters and times of major concern for the city, trying times for the city. 2020 has been that across all 10 months so far, but we do have the ability to stop this together. And just kind of going around the screen there a little bit, these are some genuine things that we're concerned about, where garage doors and packages are left and bikes are left out. And cars are open. And as we approach the holiday season, there's going to be a lot of packages being delivered, specifically around the Christmas time. Do your best, and I encourage you to bring those packages within your home. Set up alternate delivery sites within your property if that's possible. Perhaps neighbors and family members, if you're not home, could be able to retrieve those packages for you. Also, when discarding of high-end products such as TVs or video consoles or bikes or so on and so forth, leaving them out on the curb, although empty, it is an advertisement to some to say, here's what's in this residence or here's what's in this car, feel free to come get it if the opportunity exists. So it's very important for us to eliminate that opportunity. I'd like to end, before I conclude, but I'd like to end with this one slide. And this one slide is a 5-year look at crimes of opportunity that I've just talked about. Across 5 years, 74 vehicles were stolen from Summit. Every single one of them were unlocked with the keys inside of it. 66 bicycles were stolen. Every one of those bicycles were unlocked, left lying around in various parts of the city. And 173 thefts from vehicles occurred, and every one of those had their doors unlocked. These crimes are 100% preventable. No, we are not seeing across the state and our region that criminals are reverting back to what they used to do in older times, where vehicles were hot wired and bricks were thrown through windows and screwdrivers and other tools were utilized to break in. That takes too much time. These individuals know that in communities such as Summit and the surrounding communities, we make opportunity there for them. And it's really a partnership that we have to get to for everybody, not just with the police in the community, but community and neighbors amongst neighbors. Please get this message out that it takes a very simple step to just lock everything up. A number of our PSAs for it's a 9 p.m. Lock It Up campaign has gone out. You'll see that throughout the state as well. That's a partnership through the State Chiefs of Police Association and all the County Chiefs of Police Associations to get that message out for a simple routine. But I want to expand upon that, and I don't want to misguide the public to say 9 o'clock's the time to do it. 9 o'clock should be the time, or 8 o'clock, whatever time you're going to retire for the night, to just double check. But I encourage you to lock everything up at any given point that you're going to be away from your vehicle. What I'd like to do is, let me just pull this screen share off for now and go back here. And before I turn it back over to Council President, I would just like to say thank you on behalf of the men and the women of the Summit Police Department to the entire Summit community for your support and your assistance during an extremely challenging year. At the height of COVID health crisis, our community responded with much needed personal protective equipment, emotional support, and an abundance of nourishing food. Shortly thereafter, our agency was shaken to the core when one of our officers was seriously injured in a head-on collision with car thieves fleeing from a neighboring jurisdiction. Without hesitation, the Summit community was there for us. A similar situation occurred with another officer just a few short weeks later. And yet again, the Summit community responded with such incredible kindness. I would be remiss if I did not also acknowledge and thank Mayor Radis, members of Common Council, City Administrator Rogers, fellow department heads, support staff, and city employees for your unwavering support and genuine concern for the safety and well-being of our officers. Over the last 7 months, our agency was catapulted into a series of events that have challenged us at every level, from managing a health pandemic, leadership changes, widespread power outages, civil calls to action, and much more. Throughout it all, your leadership and your support has been invaluable. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for this presentation. It was very informative, and I'm going to open it up to members of council if anyone has any questions. Councilmember Little.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Chief. That was really helpful information and very informative. I just wanted to reiterate one of the points you've often made to us in council and in the past is that a lot of vehicles today, the mirrors fold in when they're locked. So, you know, you're talking about people going around and actually testing door handles. In a lot of cases, as you've made the point in the past, they don't even need to actually test them. They can go around and they have a visual sign that the car isn't locked because the mirrors aren't folded in, and they are aware of the models and which cars can be locked. So it's really important. The fact that not one single car was actually stolen without the keys in it is just a sign that these are incredibly preventable. It is bringing you know, an element of danger into our community that just really doesn't need to be here. And so I really appreciate you making that point, and I just wanted to reiterate that fact that you've made, you know, that point that you've made to us in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hairston.
Chief, extraordinary report. And you know I'm one who loves charts and graphs and things like that. So just thank you for your thoroughness and your ability to just jump in and just take off. It shows with our results. And I want to, like Council Member Little, highlight something else that you told us, because I know that with that hurricane and the police having to assist the JCP&L and PSC&G with the road work, our officers are hired by them, and this is something that is not a cost to the city. And I think that's something that's worth highlighting because I know people will see the officers sitting there and in their estimation doing nothing and being a cost to the city. And that's something that I just want to highlight, that it is not JCP&L. And correct me if I'm wrong, but if I understood, they are hired, our officers are hired by JCP&L and PSE&G when they have to accompany them.
Yes, you are absolutely correct. And that holds true for any road work that is being conducted in the city. Even with some of the jobs that the city DPW is working as well, if they do involve traffic concerns within that roadway, you will have off-duty officers supplementing the regular patrol officers to cover those details. So on average, I would feel safe, comfortable saying that on a regular weekday, on average, you would probably see an additional 5 to 10, sometimes 5 to 7, sometimes even 10 or 11 additional officers out there on these construction sites. They are officers that are here off duty on their own time, being compensated for by the contractor, whomever that contractor is. What's fortunate about that for us in an operational standpoint is that if something were to occur within Summit and the need arises, we have full authority to recall every one of those officers that might be on their off duty and pull them right back into operational patrol to supplement the officers that are here. But you are correct in your statement.
Awesome. So thank you for managing that piece. And the other piece that I want to bring in is, it is remarkable how when everyone else was shut down, the police department and our fire department and our first aid squad were still on duty and increased duty. But I cannot not recognize our city clerk, who also was keeping things moving. So as we lift up Megan Avalon, as we lift up Amy Cairns, I want to lift up Rosemary Licatisse, because she kept us going. So just thank you for your just extraordinary work.
Thank you, Councilmember Hairston. Councilmember O'Sullivan, did you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Council President. Thank you, Chief Bartolotti, and our men and women in uniform who serve and protect us. Your work during the pandemic has been remarkable. I just have a comment regarding opportunity for car theft. I live near 2 schools, and around pickup time, I see it all the time: bags, laptops, valuables, key fobs, even at sports games over at Kent Place, people just leave their things in their car, and it's almost shocking that the numbers aren't higher. I think people just need to take a little bit more personal responsibility over their belongings and their keys.
Yeah, and I agree, and I apologize for I was remiss in actually mentioning it. I don't have the breakdown for you on times of day that these thefts are occurring, but I can tell you they are not just during the overnight hours. These are happening during daytime hours as well. And part of that, as you said, Councilman, is attributed to situations just like that, where we're running into stores real quick and leaving the car unattended, sometimes running, or at facilities such as the sporting fields and so on and so forth. It's okay to leave valuables in the car, but as you noted in our PSA video, you want to put those out of sight. You want to lock those in your car and just make them invisible and unattainable for somebody to retrieve. And that really involves locking them up.
Are there any other comments from members of Councilmember Naidoo?
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to thank you, Chief, for your leadership this year. Coming into this role, it's been an extremely challenging year for you, for the department. Thank you to the department as well for everything. I thought the presentation was excellent because I think it put very clearly the fact that 100% of all of these issues that people have been talking about are preventable. And I thought you made an excellent point about the fact that there are repercussions, not only simply for those who have their car stolen, but the fact that once the car is stolen, there can be additional crimes committed by those who steal it. And therefore, there is many impacts that we're not even seeing potentially from there. So I just wanted to thank you again for your leadership. And I hope this message, the fact that it's preventable, is repeated and that folks get to hear it and understand it. I know that when Chief Weck was there, we had similar presentations, and I remember council members at that time kept on saying, you know, these are things that are within our control, and people should take responsibility and do something about it. But thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Mayor Radist.
Thank you, Council President. I want to thank you, Chief. We have worked very closely together in the last 7 months, and when you had to jump in March, it's been a great pleasure and honor to work with you. Your steadfastness, your steady hand, your thoughtful approach, and your calm demeanor in all of this has been very, very meaningful. So it's been easy to be this council with you under your work as the chief. So I appreciate it. Thank you. And I couldn't let the opportunity go by without saying a special thank you. And I also want to point out to everyone that the Department of Community Services was open for business throughout the pandemic. They had a table set up in the atrium, and they did a lot of work. Those folks manned that table every morning, 5 days a week, and we got a lot of business done. And some of the surrounding towns were completely shut down in their building and permit departments. So I want to thank them. They came in and they sat there at that table with masks on and did the people's business. So thank you very much. I think everyone in the community at City Hall worked really hard, those who were in the offices and as well as those who were working remotely. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from members of council? Are there any comments from members of the public or questions? Go ahead, Eileen Kelly.
Hi, good evening. Thank you again, Chief Bartolotti, for your very thorough presentation. My question is really around the 5-year trend. So you mentioned that we're sort of an unlocked door community for many years. Assuming nothing has changed, what do you believe is leading to that 188% increase? Presuming we don't have 188% more people leaving their cars unlocked. So do you have a sense to what might be driving that? And I, a couple months ago, I think I asked about a license plate reader technology. Do you have a sense if that's been effective at all or will be more effective heading into the rest of this year?
So the increase we can attribute to increase in collaborating with neighboring jurisdictions and what they're seeing. And the trend is pretty much the same. I'll step outside that core region I talked about with all those additional counties and really just talking about the surrounding jurisdictions to Summit as we border 5 other towns. We're all seeing the same thing in that the opportunity is there, and it really comes down to opportunity. And a lot of these times, because the opportunity of unlocked vehicles with keys in, the actual time period it takes for somebody to steal a car and get out of the city before it's discovered is relatively quick compared to olden days when there was a little bit of effort to get into those cars. Some of the individuals that have been arrested for these car thefts rather, in their interviews, it is very similar to the interview we conducted with our the person we arrested for the bicycle thefts a few weeks ago, is that it is known that in these suburban communities that vehicles are left unlocked. And it's because we are very busy people. We saw the spike across Summit and through the other communities during the height of COVID. It was very interesting when you look at the stats statewide from about mid-March to about mid-April. Crime throughout the state, and we're talking violent crime, even murders, shootings, and robberies, all plummeted. And we believe that there was enough of a fear out there, even for individuals that are engaging in criminal activity, to stay home at that time. That transcended and increased right around mid-April and continued all the way through till about the beginning of July, where it kind of steadied off and went. So I think that 188% increase is attributed to that directly. There was some things that changed on a county level and an inter-county level with regards to vehicle theft, state level. Vehicle theft in the state is something that is pretty big State Police has a whole unit dedicated to it. A lot of counties have a whole unit dedicated to it. At one time, Union County partnered with Essex County and had a auto theft task force that dealt with stolen cars for years and was very successful in that, and has since, over the years, been disbanded due to funding. So I think that's where you're seeing it. Regards to license plate reader technology, that technology changes like any other technology day to day. So we do have license plate readers throughout the state, and I believe I mentioned it the last time, and unfortunately I have to reiterate it again for security concern purposes. We don't announce where those plate readers are deployed. They're not a deterrent for individuals coming into the city. I can tell you that. A lot of times they're not known that those plate readers are in existence. Those plate readers, they're usually utilized as a investigative tool to see what vehicles are coming in and out of the city. What we're noticing with plate readers as a whole is that a lot of the vehicles that are being picked up on plate readers that we know are stolen after the fact are not necessarily reported stolen at the time that they're being hit on the plate reader. And that is because the quickness that an individual is able to steal a car, get out of the particular jurisdiction that they're in, and oftentimes, especially in the overnight hours, cars are not getting reported stolen until several hours or the morning later. In some cases, when individuals were away for a couple of days, it wasn't a couple of days. So it's not automatic. And the way license plate reader technology works is that it reads a license plate reader, it reads a license plate. It has to make a best guess effort at what that plate character is. And that ranges from, if it's a good clear shot, the character reading is good. If it's a little fuzzy, it's not. I'm sure everybody's seen license plates driving around that have their paint peeling and so on and so forth. That makes it a little more difficult to read. But that gets auto-read and deciphered through an automated system, and it spits back a response at that point. And as I said, a lot of times those responses come back what we call cleared, which is no wants or warrants associated with that. What will happen is later on, if a vehicle down the road a couple hours later, next day, so on and so forth, does get entered, we get what's called a delayed hit to let us know that that vehicle was here. What that's helping us do is kind of track the times that cars are coming and going in and out of Summits, and that's why we really know that this is happening throughout all hours of the day. Predominantly, it's happening in the overnight hours when people aren't aware, they're asleep, they're in their homes. And a lot of our, while technology is good, a lot of some of these cameras out there are not best quality. So they're grainy pictures, as you saw by the little insert in that PSA video. As clear as that was, it was impossible to make any kind of facial recognition ID on those individuals. And that's really what we're saying.
Are there any other comments or questions from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. Thank you so much, Chief. This was very, very informational and helpful for us and the community to hear. So I hope that the community will take this to heart about locking up cars and bikes and not making ourselves an easy target. So thank you.
Thank you, Council President.
So with that, we are now on to public comment. So at this point in the meeting, members of the public have an opportunity to comment on any matter that is not on the agenda. Okay, let's see. Jim Bennett, go ahead, Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, Council President, and good evening, Mayor Radis, members of Common Council, and city staff. Yesterday, I sat through...
Mr. Bennett, can I stop you a moment? I need you to state your address as well.
I apologize, of course. Jim Bennett, 38 Fairview Avenue.
Thank you.
Yesterday, I sat through 3.5 hours of live audio testimony before the Law and Public Safety Committee of the State Senate. The subject of the hearing was issues currently confronting this state's utility companies, including their response to outages resulting from Tropical Storm Isaias. One of the 11 witnesses at that hearing was your JCP&L representative, Carol Bianchi's boss, Jim Fackelt. Mr. Fackelt is the president of JCP&L. Because I listened to Jim's testimony and his responses to questions, I can focus your field of questioning when you meet with Ms. Bianchi on November 4th to receive an after-action report. Mr. Fackelt stated that 70% of the outages from Tropical Storm Isaias were due to trees. There were about 8,800 locations in the JCP&L service area that were the result of tree damage. Mr. Fackelt complained that one of the impediments to fixing the problem was that 80% of the outages caused by the trees were on private property off the JCP&L right-of-way. Mr. Fackelt went on to state that 30% of the power was restored within 24 hours, 85% was restored within 3 days, and 98% was restored in a little over 5 days. Now let's indulge ourselves for a moment in the assumption that each outage required about the same amount of time to fix. If the local distribution system had been underground, there would have been no damage from trees. We could have subtracted out 70% of the outage from Isaias, and the remaining 30%, if we take Mr. Fackelt's numbers, should have been 100% restored within 24 hours. Now, obviously, that's an oversimplification, but I think it's nevertheless instructive. If JCP&L eliminates 70% of the source of its failures due to Isaias, JCP&L could restore full power following a storm in far less time. Now, in addition to Mr. Fackelt, there was much discussion at the hearing about communication and disaster response. David M. Daly of PSE&G had helpful comments on this topic, but if we can pare down future disasters, discussions about future responses would become less important. I sent the ad hoc committee a submission from Mr. Kincaid G., one of the witnesses at the hearing. Mr. G. is the president of a nonprofit organization called Citizens Helping to Affect Regulation of Gas and Electric, or CHARGE. One of Mr. G's more interesting suggestions was to sunset utility franchises, and for this, see Assembly Bill 108. In effect, a utility has to compete with other utilities for your business every set number of years, and if a utility provides poor service, you can say, "You're fired." One mayor who can speak firsthand about Mr. G's proposal is Mayor David Freed of Robbinsville. Mayor Freed has both JCP&L and PSE&G in his town. His honor describes his town as a, quote, tale of haves and have-nots, close quote. JCP&L, Mr. Freed says, is the fourth worst out of 4. I also submitted my own written testimony to the committee. So let me conclude by being clear that I'm not asking mayor and council to specifically advocate burying lines. We are not there yet. But when you receive a report from Ms. Bianchi on Wednesday, November 4th, 2020, I'm asking you to be sure that she tells you how many of the 8,800 tree locations were in Summit and where they were, and for the remaining 30% of the causes of outages, what was the exact nature of those affecting Summit? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Just to clarify, on November 4th, Ms. Bianchi will be joining the council meeting, and it will be an opportunity for the public to also ask questions. So you'll have your opportunity to raise those issues directly with her. Okay?
Excellent.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Moving on, Mr. Kramer.
Thank you very much. This is Doug Kramer at 9 Brantwood Drive in Summit. First, I'd like to thank the police for all they do. I listened to the presentation and reminds me how lucky we are to have such a great police force. So thank you. This is my second time speaking to council. For those that don't know me, I'll remind you that last week I was the person that talked about civility in light of disparaging tweaks by a member of council, which obviously apologized for. Last week I said that a lot of people were offended. And since the last meeting, I wanted to let you know that I've received over 30 texts, emails, and phone calls from people I know and I don't even know in Summit, thanking me for speaking up. And I also want to thank the mayor for her comments at the beginning of this meeting on civility. But from my small point of view, the issue of improving civility in Summit hit a nerve. And, you know, what was more interesting was the examples that people provided me of political incivility in our great town. And I encouraged many of them to speak up, but unfortunately, most were afraid to do so. And they were worried about repercussions to them or their kids. And I find that very sad, and it really shouldn't happen in our town. I'd like to share with council a few items that were shared with me that I encourage people to talk about, and I don't think they're going to talk about it, so I figured I'd do it. So some examples of incivility. I'll break it down into adult behavior and kids' behavior. We know about the uncivil tweet disparaging Republicans, and people are hurt. They're still upset, for the record. You know, a few years
Mr. Kramer,
ago,
I'm going to stop you on that. We've discussed that item. It's been apologized for. If you have an issue and you'd like to speak to Councilmember O'Sullivan separately, that's fine. But we have, you know, we're already at 9:30 and we haven't even started our council business.
I have a few things I'd like to say. Thank you.
That's fine. No,
fine.
but I'm gonna ask you to move off of the tweet discussion, please.
Okay, well, I'm trying to talk about incivility and giving examples that people shared with me. So obviously a few years ago, hundreds of people were recruited to create chaos on Essex Road to intimidate a member of our town who was running for US Senate as a Republican. And people brought up to my attention, and excuse me if I don't say this perfectly, there was a charity called Summit Marches On, which did a lot of great work during the COVID period. And I thank them for their work, but at some point they changed their stripes into a political organization, and they started attacking the Ward 1 Republican candidate with videos on their website. And it just feels wrong. And people brought up the fact that there are kids in our middle school who are being bullied because their parents are a member of a political party, in this case, Republicans. And people talked to me about a former councilman getting harassed at his home by kids because he's a Republican. So I don't want this to evolve into a discussion of First Amendment rights. People can say what they want to say. We all know that, and we're supportive. But what people say and how they say things matter in this town. And if Summit adults are civil, then Summit kids will be civil. And if our adults are uncivil, then our kids are unlikely to be uncivil. So the town's great. There's a lot of great things here, but I think we do have a political incivility issue that we should address. So, you know, I want people to know that. I hope that these comments are received constructively by members of council and that we create an environment in the community where people are welcome to speak up. They're encouraged to speak up, and that the civility in our town improves, especially on these political matters. And listen, I'm not in this for notoriety. I'm just telling you what I heard. And I want people of this town to speak up, and if they feel afraid, I want town council to think about what we all can do to make them more comfortable and how we can be more civil to each other. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. And, you know, I think you've heard what the mayor said earlier. This is a time when I think people are under a lot of stress. The national mood. I mean, if you look at what goes on the national level, and, you know, this is not just a Summit problem. This is a national problem. And I think, you know, we have, as a council and as a governing body, we have worked very hard to encourage civility, to encourage working across party lines. You know, we as a council work, you know, in a bipartisan way. We are all volunteers here doing working as volunteers to improve our community. And we have a number of volunteers, not just the council, not just the mayor, but we also have all of our city committees, and we are all, working in a bipartisan way to help make Summit a better place. And, yes, there are some lamentable things that have gone on, but I would say, what you're reporting is, are just a few of the things that have happened. I don't think it's fair to generalize from just a few incidents to sort of generalize on what our community mood is. But anyway, thank you for those comments. Mr. Hayes?
Yeah, thank you, Council President Terrence Hayes, 17 Wallace Road. I'm here with several of my neighbors. I guess we're on either earlier or still on. I know I have Keaton Patel, Angela Battici, David Goldstein, Ryan Hinkus, and I'd like to talk about the status of a previously budgeted project. That is the spillway at the municipal golf course. But before I do, I really have to, I can't, ask for something without thanking the town of Summit for the work that's been done on Wallace Road. We went from what I view as kind of the worst road in town with potholes and couldn't even drive it, couldn't ride a bike on it, to what I think is, a premier road where we now have kids on rollerblades or roller skates, and we have kids learning how to bike, and really want to thank the township for committing the funds to, get the road redone. The road, however, was ripped up because of flooding, and the flooding has been caused by, one of the reasons for the flooding is that the spillway at the municipal golf course has been welded shut for years and needs to be repaired. I am told that it was on the last couple of rounds with the council that the project has been budgeted and is just waiting on state approval. But that has been about 2 years, that same status. So I'm here to ask for your guys' support, or your status, first of all, and second, your support in getting that project done so we can protect the great investment that Summit put into Wallace Road.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hayes. I'm going to turn this over to Director Cascais to answer that question.
Thank you, Council President. With us tonight is our Deputy Director and City Engineer, who is working that project. So I'm going to ask him to update the gentleman on that project and the current response we received from the DEP. So Aaron, if you could just go through that update.
Absolutely. Through you, Council President, and good evening, Wallace Road residents. So ironically, we did receive a letter actually today, this afternoon, from the DEP regarding the permit process for the spillway. And a little history, a dam and a spillway, the difference between them is really a couple of inches. So anything over 5 feet or 5 feet and above is classified as a dam by NJDEP. It's better to be identified as a spillway, but ours was identified as a dam a couple years ago. So it is before the Bureau of Dam Safety. Unfortunately, since it's not a high impact dam, a higher class that would impact significant life and property downstream, it doesn't receive the attention at the reviewing process that we would like, which is why it's dragged behind a little bit. We have been staying on top of them, so we did get that response today. What they requested was a couple of minor soil and joint calculations that we will provide, and hopefully we will get that turned around before the end of the year to get the permit. The project is budgeted for, so as soon as we do have a permit, we will go out to bid to get that completed.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Schrager. So moving on, Amy DeCibio, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, Councilman Fox. This is Amy DeCibio. I live at 1 Essex Road in Summit. I actually missed the last one of these meetings and I wanted to be on. as well. And I just sort of want to echo what Doug Kramer said. He actually said exactly a lot of the things that I would like to say. So I won't reiterate everything, but I will say this is not just a few incidences. With all due respect, Chairman Fox, there are a lot of things online in town, a lot of hate speech, and we've got a lot of signs out front that say no home for hate in Summit. And I would say I think people really need to pay heed to that, especially the ones who are going to put those in their front lawns. So I would just like to reiterate what he said. I won't expand further.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. DeCibia. I appreciate your comments. Any other comments from members of public? Okay, Ms. Fagan.
Thank you, Council President. Elizabeth Fagan, I live at 27 Hawthorne Place. First, I just want to thank all of you for what you do. I know it's a lot of hours and a lot of time out of your days. I just want to echo what Mayor Radis said at the beginning of the meeting and what Doug Kramer and Amy DeCibio have said. I'm disappointed in and extremely concerned about what's going on in our town. We need to bring unity back, and we need to do it fast. This starts from the top. It means all adults, especially our leaders, need to act with decorum and respect for all neighbors and friends. This town is really special. We need to keep it that way. Students in our schools are fearful of sharing their opinions because they believe they'll be ostracized by their peers or will receive a bad grade. They're afraid. The kids are afraid. The parents are afraid for their kids. Despite what you said in response to Doug Kramer, Council President, what you said in response to Doug Kramer's comments, I assure you that these fears are not unfounded. This should never happen in our sweet community. We love this town, we all do. And this is in part, this fear is in part a result of the discourse to which Mayor Radis referred in her opening statement tonight, which has become commonplace amongst adults in our town on both sides of the political aisle. This is shameful. We lecture our kids about how to manage social media, how they shouldn't post words they wouldn't say to someone's face, and how they should be kind. We adults need to heed our own advice. In my opinion, it comes down to kindness. We all have to go back and consider how to be kind to everyone in our town, even if we disagree. Then we can model that for our kids. That's all I have to say. And I do appreciate all of your efforts, but I do want the council to understand that this is not a unique concern. Thank you.
I hear your concerns and thank you for sharing them. And I agree. Social media is a big source of this problem. And I think people are emboldened to say things on social media that they won't say in public. And I think it's something that we as adults need to learn, and we also need to teach our children. So I appreciate you raising that issue. So moving on, Ryan Felmet. Go ahead, Mr. Felmet.
Hello, this is Ryan Felmet from 57 Madison Avenue. First of all, I just want to thank the mayor for the opening remarks on the civility and this, some of you also who I spoke on the last meeting as well in regards to the civil discourse that occurred. And I appreciate the conversations that I've had with a couple of you since that meeting. So thank you for that as well. I just also wanted to say though that furthermore, it's not productive when kind of to Doug's point, when we do speak up, when the public speaks up and the council turns around and says they're disappointed in us and it's not fair and things like that, and basically judging feelings that people have in this community. And I think that leads to more intimidation, and it also challenges people not to speak up at these types of events. But outside of that, I do have two other questions. One is related to rent evictions. As we all know, there's a moratorium on rent evictions in the state of New Jersey. And I think about 1 in 4, correct me if I'm wrong, Summit residents rent. So probably a little bit over 5,000. The question I have is, do we have an accounting here in the city of residents that are potentially facing rent eviction? And once the moratorium inevitably ends, and also as the city began to look at alternatives to ease and help residents that are facing eviction. And just one last one on business assistance. I know there's been, in light of the pandemic, there's been some, Summit has done some Summit specific small business community benefits. And also, obviously, there's the PPP, Paycheck Protection Program through the first CARES Act. But my question is related to the current status and the outlook for the small businesses in our community. What metrics are you guys using to measure the small business sentiment now and over the next 3 to 6 months? And is there anything the city is currently working on or in the process of working on in addition to helping to alleviate some of the strain that small businesses could be facing as we head into the winter with a potential uptick in a second wave of COVID? So thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I think some of these questions, I think we may have to get back to on details. As far as rentals, I don't have those statistics. I don't know if I know there are rental assistance programs through the county, but I don't know. And I believe there are about 2,000 renters or 2,000 rental units in town, but I don't have details on other than that. Does anyone else want to jump in with details? Okay.
Sure, Council President.
Yes, go ahead.
You. The number of residents, around 5,000 renters, was right. The city does not have an accounting, to my knowledge, the city does not have an accounting of who would potentially be facing eviction, because I think that info would be difficult to acquire. The city does have a rent commission that is, if you go to the city website, you can file a rent complaint. The purpose of the rent commission is to essentially mediate disputes between landlord and renters, and the process of is outlined on the city website. Also, I'm not sure what conversations are happening in other city committees, but my understanding is that we're not discussing rent control at this time, but anybody else can certainly correct me on that. And then, to the second point we discussed in the Finance Committee yesterday, that new CARES Act funding will be made available to local businesses through Union County. So that there's more to that half of the answer, but that's what was top of mind for me. So thanks.
The other thing that we are, we have been continuing to work with Summit Downtown to look at ways that we can help all the businesses, and we've extended the Sidewalk Cafe program. So we're looking at ways that we can help businesses wherever we can. We've also reduced the prices that we charge for sidewalk cafes and liquor licenses. So, wherever we can help businesses stay viable, we are doing that. Is there anything else that's going on, Mayor?
So Ryan, I'm sure as you know that the city, unique to many communities, through private funding, dispensed over $750,000 in grants to the businesses in town, not just those in the downtown, but throughout the city. And that was through SDI, which is a 501c3. And SDI has continued to provide support that the members of council and I have been encouraging them and giving them information and names. They're providing support to the restaurants and to all the businesses by having members of the community help these retailers fill out all the PPP forms, the CARES Act forms, which as anybody who's tried to do that can tell you, it's quite a complicated process. So we have provided that kind of support. SDI additionally, rather than, because they had money that they had in their budget, because they did not plan events, obviously due to the pandemic, they delivered gift cards to all the businesses, SDI gift cards, which could be used for buying things in town or buying, lunch for their employees or whatever, which is not a huge number in the gift card, that is, but it was about $19,000 out of SDI's coffers. So there's been a lot of support. Now, does the city have metrics for monitoring these private businesses? No, because they're private businesses, and they can ask us for help, and we're providing all the help we can. They didn't ask for Sustained Summit Fund or the Jumpstart Summit Fund. It was our idea, and we were able to make that happen for them. We have a great community, and the businesses really feel supported in this town. I've had many, many conversations with businesses who cannot believe how fortunate they are that the town would actually voluntarily help them and come in them and not just give them these money, but really shop there a lot. The shopping downtown, according to what people I've talked to, the merchants I've talked to, has increased significantly over prior years. So I hope we continue that trend because it will help the viability of our town.
Okay, are there any other comments from the public? Okay, so with that, I think we're closing public comment, and we'll move on to the business at hand. We have, first of all, let's see, our first, we have two finance resolutions. Councilmember Vartan.
Thank you, Council President. This is resolution number 7389. To quote directly from the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs, Division of Local Government Services, the 2020 Municipal Best Practices Inventory assesses each municipality's compliance with various laws and evaluates implementation of fiscal and operational best practices. Inventory answers provide taxpayers an additional means of evaluating their municipality's performance. The inventory also identifies areas where municipalities may require further technical assistance. Furthering this objective, the inventory contains an unscored survey section soliciting information on a variety of topics. For example, one question, what area of municipal operations has been most strained by the COVID-19 pandemic? While another asks about the degree of negative impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has had on the municipal finances, close quote. On the section with points assigned, 16 points total are needed to ensure the municipality will receive 100% of the state aid. I'm pleased to report Summit will report a score of 23 out of 24.5 possible points. Many thanks to the continued good work and professionalism displayed every day by our CFO, Tammy Baldwin, and her team. I move to adopt this resolution.
Second.
Any comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Finance number 2, Councilmember Vartan.
Thank you, Council President. This is ID number 7450. This resolution declares a vacancy for the Deputy Tax Assessor position. There are 3 positions in the Tax Assessor's office: the Tax Assessor, the full-time Tax Assessor Clerk, Lois, who retired earlier this year, and the part-time Deputy Tax Assessor, who is moving on to another job. As discussed in closed session, we feel comfortable absorbing the responsibilities of the 2 positions and hiring 1 full-time Deputy Tax Assessor. This change will save money, and I move to adopt this resolution.
A second.
Any comments from members of council? Councilmember Bowman.
I just want to add on to what Councilman Vartan said. This is a great example of reviewing people's jobs and responsibilities that our city administrator and our CFO have done to streamline the operations and to basically make the city offices more efficient. So thank you to both of you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bowman. Anyone else have any comments? Are there any comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, moving on, we have one matter on safety and health. Councilmember Hairston.
Thank you, Council President Fox. Number I'm dealing with is ID number 7409, which is the resolution to extend our 2020 Farmers Market event through December 17. And so I want to begin by first shouting out 25th anniversary celebration for the Farmers Market, and hoping everyone has had a chance to take part in it. And this resolution is asking to add 3 more dates to the calendar for the farmers market so that it can continue into the winter months. And that would be for December 6th, December 13th, and December 20th. That omits the Sunday for Thanksgiving weekend. And the hours will be now from 9 to 12, and it will continue at the Park and Shop lot number 1, which is on DeForest Avenue at the corner of Woodland Avenue. And so with that, I ask the council to pass this resolution.
And I second.
Any comments from members of council? Mayor?
I could be wrong here, but on my calendar, the Sundays in December are 6, 13, and 20.
And it says what? Yeah, it is 6, 13.
17.
So they had the wrong dates on the resolution.
So I think the 17th is a Wednesday.
You are correct. Well, no, it's a Thursday, but still.
Thursday, right.
Yeah.
Still not Sunday.
Yeah, exactly.
Council President, I think it's only incorrect in the title. I think that the dates are correct within the body of the resolution. So I'll just correct the title.
Okay.
And that's the dates I read out too, the 6th, the 13th, and the 20th.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Okay.
Sorry, just wanted to make sure it was.
No, thank you for clarifying that. I didn't catch that. So, all right. So that problem is solved. Any other comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Now we're moving on. We have 2 resolutions from Law and Labor. Councilmember Bowman.
Thank you, Council President. The first resolution is Resolution 7453, which is to authorize extension of sick leave with pay for a fire department employee. As we discussed in closed session, this employee is looking for paid leave through October 27th. We hope this individual, we wish him a speedy and full recovery. And obviously, since he has the pay sick leave, I move this resolution.
I second it.
Any comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Law and Labor number 2, Councilmember Bowman.
Yes, our second resolution is coming from the floor, and this is to grant extension of sick leave with pay for a Department of Community Service employee. We previously have offered this or granted this employee sick leave with pay, and as we discussed in closed session, this would use up the balance of his sick leave with pay. We do hope that he will come back sooner. Again, we wish him a full and speedy recovery. I move this resolution.
I second it.
Any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so moving on, we have 2 matters in community programs and parking services. Councilmember O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Council President. I have ID number 7407. This will grant free holiday parking at specific locations in the CRBD from December 12th through December 27th, 2020. Now more than ever, this holiday season, we want to encourage more visitors and more shopping in our downtown. Free holiday parking from December 12th through the 27th will benefit both the downtown businesses as well as shoppers and visitors. So the Bank Street lot, the ground level of the Tier Garage, and the 90-minute street parking will be free during this 15-day period. While it's free, we want to advise the public that time limits will be strictly enforced to encourage turnover of spaces. As always, the first hour in the DeForest lots is free, but you must pay if you stay over an hour. Individual 15-minute meters scattered around town must be paid for as well to encourage further turnover of parking spaces. All of the payment kiosks will be covered and signs will be posted on the ground level of the tier garage advertising free parking for these dates. SDI has agreed to reimburse the city for the pre-printed covers of the kiosks and has also agreed to contribute $3,000 to the City of Summit to offset some of the anticipated lost parking revenue. SDI has also agreed to market the free parking in Summit for the 2020 holiday season. They will be advertising on Facebook, in the Star Ledger, their website, summitdowntown.org, and various local newspapers and publications. All in, they will spend $4,500 on advertising. At the completion of the free parking period, our parking services manager, Rita McNanny, will provide a report to council as to the effectiveness of this effort. Thanks to the work of recent councils, we have the framework for this current agreement, and I move this resolution.
Second.
Any comments from members of council? Councilmember Naidoo.
Thank you, Council President. I want to thank Councilman O'Sullivan and Councilman Vartan and the city and SDI for working together in getting it at this date. Some of these in prior years, we know that this has gone till close to the last minute that could possibly be done. I think the fact that we are doing it this early gives some businesses some certainty as to what their expectations are, especially in this year when there's been so much uncertainty. So I think this is a good move. I've always advocated, as you know, in the past and even now, that we should think about doing this as a kind of a permanent thing, looking as an ordinance and figure out dates for the future and figure out a structure. So this way, every year we don't have to necessarily do resolutions, but I like the fact that we're doing this at least this early now. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Naidoo. Any other comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Councilmember O'Sullivan, resolution number 2.
Thank you, Council President. This is ID number 7438. This will authorize the contract suspension agreement extension November 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020 with Parking Services Plus. Once again, we are suspending the valet service contract with Parking Services Plus through the end of 2020, resulting in an additional savings of $22,495 to the city, bringing the total savings to $89,980.50 for this year. Because of the ongoing pandemic and restrictions that go along with it, demand for parking in our Broad Street garage has remained too low to warrant the valet services of Parking Services Plus these next 2 months. According to the terms of our agreement with Parking Services Plus, both parties have agreed to the extension of the contract equal to the suspension period, making the new contract expiration August 31st, 2021. I move this resolution.
Second.
Any comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So now moving on, we have a bunch of capital projects and community services resolutions. Councilmember Little.
Thank you, Council President. The first capital projects resolution is number 7410, and it's to authorize submission of an application to the New Jersey Department of Transportation's Transportation Alternative Set-Aside Program, otherwise known as a TAP grant. So just a little bit of a background. This is a grant in conjunction with the New Jersey Department of Transportation, but it provides federal funding for communities to create and maintain and design projects that are non-traditional improvements to their transportation systems. The city is allowed to submit one application each year, and the priority project for the grant this year will be the city's Parkline project. So we've previously applied for this TAP grant for the Parkline project in both 2014 and 2016. We were not successful, so we hope that this grant will be successful and allow us to move forward a little bit with this project and some of the elements of it. I ask that we approve this resolution.
Seconded.
Any comments from members of council? So I just want to clarify that this is for phase 1 of the park line, and it's also for the sidewalk on Broad Street and Morris Avenue that create access to the park line phase 1 location. Correct?
That's correct. I should have mentioned that as well.
Okay, great. Just so there's no confusion out there.
Yes, there's the park line. The rest of the park line project is still being worked on and has not been approved yet at this point.
Right. Thank you. Any comments? Any other comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. So moving on, capital projects number 2.
Thank you, Council President. Capital projects number 2 is number 7446, and it's to appoint an acting director for the Department of Community Services. As many of you have known from previous council members, our current Community Services Director, Paul Cascase, is retiring this year against all of our all of our objections, but we're going to allow him to go forward with his retirement. That retirement is officially ends in his term in the office officially ends in February, but due to accumulated leave, he will be leaving us in November. So in the interim period, we are appointing an acting DCS director, and that will be Aaron Schrager. Aaron will, I'm sure, do a wonderful job. We have full confidence that he is ready to step into Director Cascase's very large shoes, and I ask that the council support this and approve this resolution.
I second it.
Any comments from members of council? Okay, any comments from members of the public? So, congratulations. I guess we'll vote first, but all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So congratulations, Aaron. We know you'll do a great job, and Paul, will miss you very much, but thank you for all your service to the city, and I'm sure we'll still be in touch. So anyway, thank you to both of you, and best of luck. So moving on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. The third capital projects resolution is number 7445, and that's to appoint an acting city engineer. Since Aaron Schrager will be taking over the duties of the acting Department Division of Community Services head, we are going to be appointing Rick Matthias as the acting city engineer to take his place. And I ask that council approve this resolution.
I second it.
Any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And we welcome Rick's elevation to city engineer and wish him luck as well. Moving along, capital projects number 4.
Thank you, Council President. The fourth capital project resolution is number 7444, and that's to approve the promotion of the Superintendent of Public Works. And we would like to approve the promotion of Mike Caputo to this position. He has been working with Director Cascase and Aaron Schrager over the last year to take more and more responsibility in the Public Works Department. He has been doing an exemplary job and is now, fully qualified and ready. And we are looking forward to him taking over as the Superintendent of the Public Works Department. And I ask that we approve this resolution as well.
I second it.
Any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and capital projects number 5.
Thank you, Council President. Capital projects number 5 is resolution 7448, and that's to appoint the municipal housing liaison. In the same vein, Director Cascais has been the city's municipal housing liaison for quite some time. And since he is retiring, we need to appoint a new municipal housing liaison. And I am very happy to propose that Matt DeLore be appointed as our liaison. He has been working with Director Cascais as well to get up to speed on all our affordable housing settlements and fair share housing settlements. He is up to date on everything and well versed, as he has also served in this role as in his own municipality as an elected official. So he is very well qualified to take over. And he also has very large shoes to fill, but we are very happy to propose that Matt DeLore take over this position as municipal housing liaison. And I ask that we approve this appointment as well.
And I second it.
Any comments from members of council? Councilmember Naidu.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to say, if folks are watching or hearing this and wondering, obviously, this is a testament to the team that that Paul put together in the Department of Community Services. The fact that we can have all these, with his retirement, all these elevations and changes smoothly in this time of uncertainty again. I think is a great thing for the city, because we have a lot of people with a lot of institutional knowledge and workings of the city that will be to the benefit of the residents. So thank you to Paul, to Michael, for getting us to where we are, that we were able to do this tonight in this way. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor?
Yeah, I just want to briefly, I'm looking forward to working with all these gentlemen. I've worked with them up till now, but I do want to thank Paul. I've only worked with you for almost 5 years now, and I've learned an enormous amount. And I can only imagine how many dozens and dozens of council people and city workers that you have taught over your career here. And starting even teaching everyone, even when you were an even younger man than you are now. So I am grateful to you. It's been a pleasure working with you, and thank you for training these gentlemen so well, and I look forward to working with all of them as well.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any
I agree.
other?
And I'm sorry, I just wanted to reiterate that I'm as chair of the Capital Projects Committee over the last year, and I'm sure that Council President Fox will agree with me, as she served in that role for the last 2 years. Director Cascais just does an amazing job of running this very difficult and department that touches on almost every corner of Summit. He's done a great job in this role, and it's been especially rewarding to see over the last year how much effort and time he's put into bringing up the people under him and making sure that they're ready in their roles to take over as he retires. So it's really a testament to his leadership and his mentorship that we are in such a good position to have all these people just ready to step into these roles and be fully prepared and able and well-trained and have all the tools and skills necessary to really fill these very large shoes that he's leaving behind. I keep saying that, but it's hard to imagine Summit without Paul Cascais being part of it. And I think it's going to be very difficult for all of us to get used to, but he's leaving us in really great shape and with wonderful people to take his place. So we are going to miss him terribly. And I'm going to have to call him every Friday after our meeting just to check in. but he really is a very, very special human and a great asset to Summit, and he's going to be very missed.
Very nicely said, Councilmember Little, and I'll second all of that. You will be missed, Paul. I've learned a lot from you over the years, and appreciate all the guidance and teaching that you've done for me and all the other council members. So thank you again. And I guess that covers all but our one last resolution. Councilmember Little.
Thank you, Council President. The last capital projects resolution is number 744411, and that's to declare a vacancy for the part-time assistant position in the Department of Community Service. A few years ago, we created this position to take some of the administrative burden off of the DPW and DCS supervisors, and it has been a big success. Unfortunately, the person who's been ably filling this position is relocating to Florida, and so there's a vacancy in this department, but really this position has been of great value to the positions, because it allows the supervisors to concentrate on their actual work and duties, and to leave the administrative paperwork and dealings to this this position. So it's been a great success, and we would like to declare a vacancy.
As seconded.
Are there any comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Madam Clerk, did we actually vote on the municipal housing liaison, or did we get distracted?
Honestly, Council President, I'm not quite sure, but perhaps we should, just for the heck of it.
Okay. All right. So we're just going to go back to Resolution 5, just to be sure. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Just didn't want it to be non-official.
Right.
So, got a little carried away there. So that's the end of the regular agenda. We're now moving on to the consent agenda. And usually we take the consent agenda as a whole. And unless there are any members of council who'd like to discuss anything. Okay, Councilmember O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Council President. There is an item on the consent agenda that I think is worth pointing out, and that is ID number 7440 to authorize a change order for the Summit Family Aquatic Center resurfacing project for $14,400. Two items specifically led to the additional cost of this project. Due to the COVID pandemic, there were supply chain issues for the 2-inch black tile that marks the swim lanes and wall targets at each end of the pool. Those tiles were not going to be available in time to complete the project, so a decision was made to go with 2-inch cobalt blue tiles for the swim lanes and touchpads. The other item that led to the additional cost was to add 575 linear feet of 2-inch white tile that will go around the top of the plaster wall and provide a more secure bond with the metal gutter. For years, the ongoing maintenance to repair the slow erosion of that seal was a couple of $1,000s a year for patchwork. The addition of this 2-inch tile will create a more long-lasting barrier against water getting in behind the wall and causing premature erosion of the plaster. Other towns, specifically Millburn, have incorporated this technique to great success. I have been down to the pool several times to see the work in progress, and it is spectacular. I think our patrons are going to be pleased when they see it next year, and future councils will thank us for spending this money now so the wall will last a little longer. With this change order, the total of the project is $477,707.50, or 3.2% above the initial bid, and still below the city's budget for this project. And I move that resolution.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And now moving on, we'll take the rest of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on. Council members' comments or new business. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say? Councilmember Naidoo.
Thank you very much, Council President. I just wanted to note that the Summit Permanent Free Market Building, between our last council meeting and now, the ribbon cutting was done. So thank you all of those who attended, and thank you to the community who supported the project to get us to where we were. And then subsequently, the following 2 Saturdays, we had the Summit Free Market there. And I want to thank those volunteers of the Summit Free Market and the students who run it with their advisors. It was done with appropriate social, with the scheduling, and then having folks being able to go there and drop off and pick up stuff. But it was so interesting. You saw the building on that Friday empty. That following Saturday by midday, it was absolutely jam-packed. And it's a wonderful thing to see the first permanent free market building in New Jersey here in Summit. So thank you all.
Congratulations. It's a great accomplishment. And thank you to everyone who worked on it. Any other comments from council members? Okay, so hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's it. It's a wrap. Good night. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Yeah.